Hi, welcome to You Didn't Get the Memo. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. As always, you guys, we have a fantastic show for you today. And look, I'm looking forward because I know I'm going to get some pointers definitely from my guest as we sit down and talk with her. But I want to thank all of you for tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo show, which is a show that is about providing you, the viewer, with relevant, factual, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. We are live on YouTube, Facebook, as well as LinkedIn. Our show is an interactive show. So if you have questions for my guest or myself, place them in the chat section. We'll do our very best to respond to them. A gentle reminder to all of you is that I also have my own app, which will allow you to stream all of my shows 24/7. You just need to go to www.btv I'm sorry, www.localbtv.com and download the app for the BTV. Look for the memos. I appreciate you for doing that. And at present, this app is only available, you guys, here in the Bay Area. So for all of y'all that are watching, I hear you, Texas, Atlanta. Look, don't worry about it. We're going to get there. It's going to be rolled out later in the year. But I always like to give a quick shout out to all my viewers and guests that are both nationally and international. And as I always say, I thank you guys so much for tuning in to the show. Now, my guest today is Miss Tamiko Gardner, who is the plant based vegan sister. Tamiko, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm excited to have you join me.
Yes, I'm excited too. Thank you. Thank you. I love doing this. This is so much fun.
Oh, all right, awesome. Well, the thing is, you know how you have the questions about vegan, not vegan, vegetarian, not vegetarian. We're going to get into all of that. But let's just start, first of all, with telling the viewers a little bit about your backstory, where you grew up, any educational information, um, and more importantly, how you got interested in becoming a vegan. So start with the first, where you from. Everybody want to know where you from. I'm a Southern woman. And so, we eat a lot of meat, but we grow a lot
Well,
of veggies and that kind of stuff. But how about yourself? Tell us about Miss Tamika Gardner.
well, I was born and raised in the Chi, Chicago. So I guess you can also call that the meat capital of the world, where they create hot dogs and all that. So, and my family is from Arkansas, so I've got those southern roots, right? Um, and I moved out here to California when I was going into eighth grade. So what are you like 13 or so when you go to eighth grade? And so I've been in California since then. But I know people like, girl, you are from California. No, I'm not. I am from Chicago. That's where all my family is. So I still call that home, even though I've been here in the Bay Area for like well over 20 years. I guess it's over 30 years. Okay. Um, and then in terms of education, I graduated from Cal State Hayward with a degree in business, concentration in marketing. So marketing was like my first love. I've enjoyed that, been doing that for years, and I still kind of do it, as a matter of fact. And how I became vegan, so I had actually put on quite a few pounds, and I had decided that I was going to do that lemonade fast, where you drink the cayenne pepper
I've been
and
there.
right, get the cayenne pepper. So I said, okay, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna drink this lemonade stuff during the day, and then I'm gonna eat just like a salad and vegetables at night. Okay, so um, so I did that, and I started. So then I went to this bookstore over here. I live in Burlingame, and there was a bookstore, and I said, oh, I love books, I love magazines, and I saw this one book, and it was called A Plant-Based Life, and I went, huh, what does that mean? Now, what I forgot to mention is that I've been vegetarian since 1986. So I have
Wow.
not had any chicken, turkey, beef, hot link, uh, turkey neck, turkey bone, ground beef since 1986.
Girl, no pork chops, no
No pork
smoked
chops,
neck bones.
no smoked neck bones, none of that. Not even the little gizzards that you put in the dressing. Nope. You know you're
I'm
from the
just
South, so you know
asking.
about the gizzards.
Right. I'm from Arkansas too, so I can relate. We have that in common. So I'm just asking. Okay. So wow,
So
1986. Yeah.
1986. And what
Mhm.
started that journey was from another book. I read this book called A Fit for Life.
I'm
And
very
it
familiar with that book.
right? And
Mhm.
so it talked about how long meat stays in your system. So I was like, ooh, really? That doesn't sound good. So I said, I wonder how long I can go without eating meat. So it was truly a whim just to see how long could I possibly go to not eat meat. So I guess I've gone 30 plus years. So fast forward to 2016, which is when I actually became vegan. And it was in September. So really like 30 years later, I took it to a whole nother level. Now in between there, I had eaten raw, I had gone vegan. But I read this book and it talked about whole plant-based living. And I was reading that and it was talking about the processed foods and the processed sugars and the white flour, white sugars. So I said, oh, you know what? Why don't I give this a try? And here we are, almost a little over 6 years later. Yeah, like 6 years later. I don't know. I can't add, but since 2016, and I have not looked back and don't plan to go back.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Okay. So I,
So I
I
have
got
to tell you this story. I have to
this.
tell you this story. There was there's this new alternative meat that's come out, right? It was like
Right. Right.
Beyond Burger was like the first Beyond Burger came
Yes.
out before
Yes.
Impossible Burger.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody was raving about Beyond Burger and how much it tastes like meat. So I said, "Oh well, let me try it," because I really try not to eat a lot of the processed foods. Right,
Right.
that's how I started out, and we'll get into that later. So when I got the burger and I bit into it, I thought, "Well, I haven't had a burger in 30 years. Do I even remember what it tastes like?"
Oh, wow.
So, it dawned on me like, oh, that's great. I don't know why I have these on. That's great that it tastes like, but then I thought, I haven't had one in a long time. So do I really remember?
So do you really remember? Right.
Yeah.
And
So it was interesting.
so did you eat it? Did
I
was
did
it
eat it. It was good. It was good.
okay?
Yeah. I
Okay.
like Impossible better. I do like Impossible. I think Impossible Burger has more of the hamburger texture.
Okay.
Um, uh, but for me, they're all heavily processed, and as we'll talk about that, but they're all
Yeah.
very heavily processed, and it's not something I do on a regular. As a matter of fact, I rarely buy it. I eat it when I go out, but I rarely buy it and have keep it in my home.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for keeping it real. Like I said, because there's some Arkansas folks and some Texas folks on here.
Hey,
And my thing is, look, I this is what it's all about. So let's differentiate by starting the difference between vegan, because as I said, I know people who say they're vegetarian or they're
hmm
pescatarian, and this whole, oh, I'm just strictly plant based. So let's just start with differentiating between. Let's start with pescatarian. Those people who say that I only do a pescatarian diet. What are they really talking about?
so as a pescatarian, because I myself was that for a long time, and I was a part-time pescatarian, if you so to speak, and that is anyone who's eating like a lot of fish and seafood. That's pretty much what you're doing. You're eating fish and seafood. You may be eating eggs. You may be also having dairy as well. Uh, but so pescatarian is more it's like pesca because that's like fish. So that's what pescatarian is.
Okay.
Vegetarian. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was saying, okay,
Okay.
go ahead.
So, and that's a great way. And actually, I would like to I'd like to take it to the spectrum.
Sure, go,
So
absolutely.
you can start with a flexitarian. So flexitarian is you're flexible in terms of whether you're eating plant-based or vegetarian. So you have more of that flexible diet. Then we can come to pescatarian, right? And like what I just mentioned, you're eating seafood. You could possibly be eating dairy and cheese because I did. Uh, and then there's vegetarian. Now, in vegetarian, there are different levels. There are vegetarians that don't eat eggs. There's vegetarians that don't eat eggs, but they may do dairy. There's a vegetarian that does dairy but no eggs. So that's like you have lacto and ovo because that's like eggs, lacto because that's lactose milk, right? So that's how you can kind of differentiate that. And then you have a straight vegetarian that's probably doing both. Okay, they could be eating eggs um, or the dairy. But now in any of those, they aren't even eating meat. So even as a pescatarian, you're not doing chicken, you're not doing turkey, you're not doing beef. Vegetarian, no beef, or turkey, or chicken or anything like that. So I haven't had any of that. Then you could come to some people will call it plant plant based. Okay, so that's kind of this new thing that's come out in the last several years. And plant-based means it's like plant forward. So most of your meals are plant-based. That's not saying that you're eating plant-based and you're only vegan. But you may actually have some chicken or you may actually have some eggs. So it's not fully necessarily all no animals, but it's more plant forward. So I've noticed that a lot. Now we'll move on up to being a vegan. So vegan means no animal products whatsoever. Okay. And usually veganism is more ethics formed. That's how it kind of started, right? It was about the protection of the animals. So they're probably not doing vegan hair care, no vegan cosmetics. They're probably not wearing fur or leather. Um, but now here's the thing. Okay. So that's like you're vegan, but there are no animal products, no eggs, no dairy, no cheese, no chicken, no beef, no turkey, no ham, no none of that, no hot links, none of that. And
Tamika,
then,
you
huh,
hurt me.
I'm sorry, but I'm got to take you to the next level. There's a whole another level,
Okay.
and
I'm
this is
like, Tamika, you gave me the stuff I like. Hold up. Woo! Bring it up, bring it. Come on, come on.
so then you got whole food plant based. So
Okay.
whole food plant based is eating foods that are in their whole food, right? So
Hmm.
you're not doing any processed foods, which includes no white flour, no white sugars, none of the alternative processed meats that are out there. You're
Hmm.
really staying as close as possible to the origin of that food. Okay. So like say for instance maple syrup or agave is minimally processed. There is
Hmm.
some process but it's minimal, so the whole idea is to be as close as minimally processed as possible.
Okay.
And so that of course now with that, like I said, they're not doing, that's how I started doing whole food, so I still don't really use white flour in my cooking. I don't use white sugars in my cooking. I do a lot of whole grains more so. So
Hmm.
just to give you guys a real fit here. So to really know the difference between a whole food and a vegan, I like to give this example.
Okay.
Oreo cookies are vegan, but Oreo cookies are not whole food plant based. Okay. Another clue how you can tell is the ingredient list. So the longer the ingredient list on that food, the more processed that food is, right? Because it's got a whole bunch of, if you get something and you got a whole bunch of things that you can't pronounce, it's probably a processed food. But if you got something that's got a few ingredients, oh, and also whole food, no oils or very minimal oil. People are like, but olive oil is healthy. Olive oil is good for you. Yeah, but it's not. It's highly processed, right?
Hmm.
You've taken all of the fiber out of that olive, so there's
Hmm.
nothing left. There's nothing left but the oil, right? There's no fiber, and it's empty calories, quite frankly, right? But we
Have you
love
ever
it.
seen somebody treated unfairly because of?
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was like, what was that?
Yeah, but you got me so intense. I'm over here. I'm like, okay, Oreo cookies. You
Yes,
know, uh,
but they're raw. I mean, they're vegan, so you can eat them. I mean, there's a lot of foods that are accidentally vegan, and then the last top tier is raw vegan.
wait a
I know
minute.
you
You
like there's one. There's more. Okay.
look, right? I'm like, okay, how many tiers we going for here?
This is it. This is the last one. Raw
Okay,
vegan.
all right.
So raw vegan is not cooking your food above like 113 degrees.
Wow.
So, but that involves a lot of nuts. So someone with nut allergies, that it may be a little bit more of a challenge because a
Yeah.
lot of things are made with that. But that's taking it to that's a whole nother level. But it could be done.
Yeah. And although I have heard and studies show that eating raw is
Hmm.
supposed to be much better for you.
Yeah.
Now I will say that for me, I do steam. I've got a great Cuisinart that I have had for years, and it's great with steaming vegetables.
Mm.
And
Hmm.
I love that, so I can still get the crunch, and
Yeah.
it's, rather than it being cooked to mush kind
Right.
of thing, because you cooked all the nutrients out of it, that makes all the difference in the world. So
Yeah.
I think that's one of the things. But I'm sitting here, I'm going, okay, now that you got my head on a swivel,
I'm sorry, I didn't want to put you on the head, but there are because
no,
knowledge is power, right? And if you kind of understand the difference, then you can figure out which way you want to go because it's
right,
your journey, right? You don't have you can mix and match it. You can do whatever the heck you want to do, right?
right, right,
There's no guidebook, but
right.
those are just some guidelines that you can
Oh,
go by.
okay. So when we talk about carnivores, look,
Hmm.
since you done talked about me, carnivores, omnivores, and herbivores. Herbivores, I think it speaks for itself.
Yes,
Herb, right?
yeah,
Okay.
yes, or plants. Yes.
Yeah, our plants, right?
Hmm.
So carnivores and omnivores. I mean, you told me how you got started, and at some point, because of the allergies and things that I have, and I am very interested in it, but I'm cracking up. I'm like, girl, how we were raised, and I'm just like, mm. And you talk about
Hmm.
the gizzards in that dressing, so I'm like, okay,
But you could find a mushroom that could probably almost replicate it or kind
replicate.
of give you that. It's all in there's it. And that's, I mean, I'm veering off, but that's the exciting part that you really can do the flavors. So this is what I like to say. When people say, "Oh my God, I can't stop eating meat," and I'm like, "Well, I want you to think about it this way: meat. Oh no, guess what? Everybody's like, oh, well, it doesn't have the food won't have any flavor. Well, neither does meat until you season it. Meat has no flavor. Have you ever tried to eat a piece of raw meat?
Yeah, true that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So it's the seasonings and that you how you season it that makes it. Now, what you're probably gonna get, the texture is gonna be a little bit different, but
Hmm.
you can replicate that flavor with those same seasonings.
Mm.
So
Okay, Tamika, by the end of this show, I guess I'm
give you a cooking lesson.
right, I'm telling you. Okay, so when we come back,
Yeah.
let's talk about, as a vegan, where do you get your protein? We're going to pause for the cause. You
Okay.
guys don't go anywhere. I see some of your questions. Um, Carolyn, I wasn't quite certain with the comment about hemp. Are you wanting to ask a question about that? So if you will shore that up for me, I'll be able to share it with her. But guys, don't go anywhere. We're talking with Miss Tamiko Gardner, the plant-based vegan sister by way of Arkansas, Chi-Town, now the Bay Area. And she's all the way vegan. So we'll be right back, you guys. Don't go anywhere. Thank you. Hang in there.
My Shiro doesn't always wear a cape, but she always has time for a hug, a smile, for going the extra mile. My Shiro stretches every dollar, puts in long hours, puts others first. But now it's your time, Mom. When you're ready to retire, we want you to be able to enjoy it. It's time to start saving now. A free 3-minute online chat can give you the personalized tips you need to start boosting your retirement savings today. Visit aceyourretirement.org/Shiro.
My grandfather was a case in that study. He worked as a firefighter where the Tuskegee Airmen trained. He and I were phenomenally close. The syphilis study happened for 40 years. Penicillin was found to be the most effective treatment, but the men were denied the treatment. Interestingly enough, I've had someone tell me that they were concerned about getting the vaccine because of the syphilis study. And I always try to educate or provide some information about what happened. But then I said, you're talking about something that happened to my family. And I've taken both of my vaccines. I'm doing this for them. Health is greater than wealth, and it's really up to us to take ownership of our health and this story.
All right, if you guys are just tuning in, you've missed a good part of the show already with my awesome guest, Miss Tamiko Gardner, who's a plant-based vegan sister. And she told us some things, and I'm like, oh, okay, especially that comparison. Raw meat don't have no flavor to it either until you season it. So I'm like, okay, sister keeping it real for us today. And people want to know how does it taste. And I have had vegetarian dishes. I've had a couple of vegan dishes, and honestly, you know what, they were fine. But I said to you, you know what, but I was always hungry afterwards, and maybe it's a mindset, right? I need to have that chicken bone to gnaw on, or that rib bone. But but at the same time, before we went to break, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, as a vegan, where do you get your protein from? So let's talk about that, because I'm certain people want to know, well, if you were just straight vegan, which you are, where does the protein come in?
So I want to start out by saying this. Um,
Hmm.
we, if we're not, as long as we're not bodybuilding, or, if we're bodybuilding, then yes, you're going to need a lot more protein. But there are vegan bodybuilders out there who are bulking up as well. So I want to get that myth, that we feel like we need to have all this protein, when really probably the amount of protein that you need is about the size of your fist. And you get that, you get that if you have like a piece of meat. Okay. But there are vegan sources, plant-based sources, where you can get your meat. For instance, quinoa. And quinoa is actually a complete protein, because sometimes that's one of the things that people are like, well, you can't do the vegan protein because it's not a complete protein and you have to mix it with something else. Well, not everything in the animal protein is a complete either, except for the meat. Yeah. But, and then if you want to really take it back, okay, so where did the cow get their protein? Did the cow eat another cow? I want you to think about that. Did the cow eat
See,
another
I'm
cow?
just saying. Okay, okay,
Right?
all right, I
So
feel you.
so
Yeah.
the cow got its protein from eating the hay. Now, obviously, their system and the way that it's processed,
Right.
that's what's probably giving it, a little bit more. But if you start to think about it, like, well, oh, protein is so important. Well, and then people are, well, it's an animal. Well, but you're eating that animal for a source of protein, right?
Hmm.
But there are protein sources that are vegan. So, like I said, quinoa is a complete protein. And if
Hmm.
you have just 1 cup of quinoa, that comes to 8 grams of protein.
Oh, okay.
And on average, you need maybe about 60 grams for maybe 60 grams a day, maybe.
Of
Might be a
protein.
little less than that, depending on if you're male or female. Okay. And then another source, soy. Soy is a complete protein. And I know that soy is controversial because some people are like, oh, but it gives you this, and I don't want to eat soy. And some people have allergies to soy. That's true. And I understand that Asians have been eating soy for centuries, right? They've been eating it for a really long time, and they live a long time. But I get, there's the argument that, well, their body is made different than African Americans, right? So they process it a little differently. So
Hmm.
who knows? But there's tofu. You can also get it in lentils. A For half a cup of lentils, you get about a little over 8 grams, almost 9 grams of protein.
Right.
Chickpeas. I love chickpeas, and let me tell you, you can do lots of things with chickpeas, lots of stuff with chickpeas, and you get 7.2 grams for a half a cup. Okay. Peanuts, obviously, they're high in fat. And if you're going to eat the peanuts, I suggest to get the peanuts that are either dry roasted and they have no added oils. And all you want is the peanut. Okay. But you can get, that's a little bit higher in grams. It's about 20 grams in that. But like I said, it's a little higher in fat, but you can get that chia seed. You can add chia seeds to, it's 2 grams per teaspoon. Add it to your smoothie. Top it on top of your yogurt. Put it on a salad. Pumpkin seeds are another great one too. Hemp seed. Hemp seed is another source of protein. So there are definitely various plant-based sources of protein.
Right, right. Okay. So that was Carolyn's comment about using hemp seed. Okay, thank you, Carolyn, for that. I appreciate that. Okay, here's the question though.
Yeah.
If you're a vegan,
Hmm.
what should they be aware of? Because I'm thinking of just your vitamins when it comes to iron, when it comes to B12, when it comes to vitamin C, calcium. You know, that's a big thing. And for some of us who are not quite as young as you are, Tamika, we we have to watch our calcium intake, right?
Right.
So what are your suggestions as it relates to someone that's becoming a vegan and have to have concerns about making sure that they are getting the correct amount of vitamins?
So of course you can do a vitamin supplement. If you're going to do a vitamin supplement, I would be sure to make sure that it is vegan, because sometimes if you're getting the ones like in capsules, that's a gelatin, and gelatin is not vegan. So I'd be mindful of that, because sometimes they aren't always vegan, but you could check. There are some on the market. I would say the three ones that are the big ones to really be concerned with are like your vitamin D, because sometimes in like milk it's fortified, and so it's fortified with the vitamin D. But if you get yourself plenty of sun and you get yourself some plant-based milks that are fortified with a little vitamin D, you could be and you can also take the vitamin D supplement, which I have done, because at one point my vitamin D was really low, but that was before I even went vegan. Um, the other is your omega threes, and that because you get a lot of times you get that omega three from like salmon or fatty fishes from that area. But you can get your omega threes from like your it's essential for our diet, right? So you can get that with flaxseed. You can get it with your chia seeds, walnuts. I usually do a lot of walnuts, hemp seeds. So these are and almonds. So those are some great ways where you can get your omega 3s. The other is B12, which is a big one. A lot of times, vegans and vegetarians may be low in that vitamin B12. But you can get that with unwashed organic mushrooms. So mushrooms can be a good source, because the B12 is in the soil, right? And probably why you're getting it a lot in the animals is because they're eating of that soil, so they're ingesting that vitamin, the B12. But you can also use spirulina. You can get spirulina; it's a good source. Nori, which are like the what do you call them? Like the seaweed thick, oh my God, my brain just went blah. The little seaweed sheets. That's what it is. Or the nori is what sometimes you get with sushi when they wrap it in sushi. And
Right.
another big one is nutritional yeast. And let
Mm-hmm.
me tell you, nutritional yeast is a vegan's best friend, because
Mm-hmm.
it gives you that cheesy taste. Okay? Some people don't like it, but you can't put too much, because if you too much, it will have a weird taste. But it's a great thing, and you could spread that on popcorn. I've done it on popcorn. Spread like I
Mm-hmm.
said, popcorn, mashed potatoes, French fries. I mean, you can use this nutritional yeast in making cheese sauces. So that's also another source, a good source for. Yeah.
Okay. And now I have to ask you this. I've been putting up your website. Can people find some of these recipes or things like this on your website?
Actually, you're probably gonna find more of them. 'Cause I don't post a lot of recipes, but I'm getting into it. I'm actually in the process of creating a cooking membership where I'm
Okay.
going to share that. So that's in the works right now. So people can join my email list, and as soon as that is released. But I do sometimes have recipes in my Facebook group, probably more
Oh,
in my group than in my Facebook.
right, right. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. So I got to ask you this
Yes.
before I go to this next question.
Okay.
Being a vegan caused you to have more gas. I mean,
Right.
keeping it real, because it's like, okay, uh, look, if I'm already gassy, I don't know if I need to have that. So, but no, I mean, honestly speaking, because that's one
Yeah.
of the things that, like I said, a question a couple of people want to ask. Does being a vegan cause you to have more gas, in your opinion? You
In
know,
my opinion, I don't think I have any more gas than I did before,
okay,
really, quite
fair enough.
honestly. But if you want, you can, get yourself like a prebiotic, that kind of helps with
True.
that system in the gut. And then be mindful of, like for instance, beans, because beans is something that causes people to have a lot of gas, right? So
Hmm.
make sure you soak your beans. That's one of the big tips that you can do is you soak those beans because you're soaking out the I can't think of the the mineral or something that causes that fluctuate. And then also, there are other foods that are kind of gassy, like Brussels sprouts and cabbage. Those
Hmm.
tend to be kind of gassy,
Right,
but you
right.
might be able to cut that with like a little apple cider vinegar, or a little bit of vinegar, right? Just kind of cut it with a little bit of it. So I don't think it's going to be any more than.
I'm glad to hear you say that though, because I started using just a little bit, a tablespoon of white vinegar in things like my greens and my beans, even after I soak them. And I can tell you right away, absolutely no gas whatsoever. And so
Hmm.
for the people who saying I don't like to eat beans because it causes me to be gassy, listen, you also got to find those things, because I look, we were raised soak your beans overnight, put some, you
Yep.
know,
Yep.
soda in it, and go from there. But there was still some, of the gassinesses. But I found that using vinegar and totally,
Hmm.
totally helps. So
Yeah.
thank you for saying that. So
And
with that, all
and
right.
And the
Mm-hmm.
other thing that will happen is because if you're starting to eat more fiber,
Mm-hmm.
and there's certain bit like kale and certain things, roughage, you're eating more roughage, you're gonna use the bathroom a little, but you're gonna have number two a lot more often. So, which is a good thing because that means it's moving through.
Absolutely.
Like
Absolutely.
you should be having bowel movements. Okay.
Yeah. At a minimum, 1 to 2 a day. And I
A
hear
day.
people say that they don't go, maybe every couple of third day.
Ooh,
So just think about all that food that's putrefied in your gut, and it's just sitting there. And I say that's why a lot of people are so angry, because they just ain't had the movement, right?
hey.
So you y'all, I'm just keeping it real. And
Mhm.
you know how you just feel so much lighter when you finally go to the bathroom, and you've like, oh my God. And I've heard people say, I didn't even know I had that much stuff in me. Well, you got to think about how long your colon is, right? 10 to 13 feet, right? So you got
Right.
all of this wrapped around. You got to have something to keep it moving, you
Yep.
guys. So that's just being on the for real. So quit saying I don't eat beans because it does this, when it's probably some of the best things for you. And I don't
Yeah.
know about y'all, I'm trying to live a much longer life, and I do
Mhm.
good. But why we have Miss Tamiko on here is because I'm looking to get better than good. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. So let me switch gears for a minute.
Sure.
Before we went live, I was talking to you about tofu, because
Mhm.
that's one of the suggestions that you had talked about adding in recipes. And I was telling you about, I bought tofu and it crumbled all to pieces. So let's talk about the different, you know, um,
Textures.
textures of tofu,
Yeah.
and how adding tofu to your diet actually adds to the enhancement of your food. Especially for me, I love to stir fry food.
Mm.
So talk about
Mhm.
that, please.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, tofu is a really good source of protein as well. It's one of the top three for sources of protein. And you want when you're getting your tofu, you do want to get it, non-GMO. So you want to get it non-genetically modified. Okay, so one there, and if you can, try to go organic with it. So there are different textures of tofu that you can use for different things. So I'll start with the softest one. So they call that silken tofu, and it's really, really like soft because, and hence the name silk, right? You can use that. That's usually great for making if you're going to make some puddings or some creamy sauces. That's what that's usually really good for, like creaminess, because it's got that creaminess. It'll give that creamy texture. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people say, "Oh, tofu. It doesn't have a taste." Well, tofu has no taste. There really isn't a real taste to tofu. Tofu takes on whatever seasonings that you put on it. And I'm gonna tell you now. See, I as a kid, I did not like anybody's vegetables. I didn't even like greens. I was a teenager. My mom's friend tried to feed me some tofu. I was like, I don't want no tofu. The heck is that? Ew. Ew. It is nasty. It is bland. Oh my God. Oh, what are you
Oh
trying to
my
do?
goodness. Greens. Okay, look, we're gonna
I
have to
eat
pick
greens
a side.
now.
Okay, all right, all
Oh yeah,
right.
no, I tear up some greens now, but as a kid, man, I got in trouble because, like I said, my favorite vegetable growing up in Chicago as a kid was corn. Okay.
The worst, especially for people of color, black people, I'm gonna say, eating corn, and that's one of the things. Corn sits in your gut forever.
And
Breaking it down is tough. I'm
it's
just
a
telling you. So all y'all out there that's gotta have corn with every meal, I don't care whether it's, you know, uh, you cooking it in a skillet, cream corn with corn on the
ooh,
top. What I'm just telling you. Oh my goodness. And you wanna know why your stomach hurts? Keep
that's
eating that
why.
corn.
Well, I tell you, I did not like, and so my aunt, one time, I, she put some. I had to eat greens, right? And like I said, I didn't like vegetables. I like macaroni and cheese. I like corn, and so it's amazing that I'm a vegetarian or vegan, right? So this one time the greens were on the plate and I had to sit in the back. I was sitting at the dining room table. She was in the front of the house, watching her stories. Y'all know what the
Mm,
stories are. Okay, she was watching her stories.
right.
And I'm sitting at this table. Like, oh my God, I can't. So I thought I was gonna be smart and put the greens in the garbage. I threw the greens away. How she figured out I threw them greens away, I don't know. Because I caught myself covering it up so you couldn't see that I threw them away.
Mm,
Don't you be throwing away my greens. You ain't throwing away no food. What is wrong with you? And then put more greens on my plate. I was like, see, this is, that's child
mhm,
abuse. That's child abuse. That's child abuse. Making me
yeah,
eat something.
yeah,
But now I tear them up.
right,
Tear them
right.
up.
And, and parents need to hear this because there's a thing. It seems like with kids, the only thing I know with my grandkids, they only want to eat mac and cheese, and they only want to eat those chicken strips. And I'm
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you can't live on that. So when they come to grandma's house, they getting greens, they getting cabbage, they getting red beans and rice. I mean, that's how I cook. Cause I mean, I am from the South. Hadn't
Hey.
lost it, and I throw in a peach cobbler on top of that.
Oh,
And I
oh.
make my ice cream homemade. So yes, y'all, I do that, and I got people who can testify to it. So
Oh, some homemade ice cream. Oh, you taking me back to all the family like reunions and Memorial Day. Oh.
yeah, well, I mean, but that's what it's about. And so, on one hand, it's just, for me, flipping the script, we're doing some things a little differently. But
Mm-hmm.
there, in terms of cooking, growing my own vegetables, many people see my
Mm.
garden, those kinds of things. But, I think that it's important. Here's the question: do you miss meat? Somebody asked that. Do you miss meat?
I actually I don't. I don't miss meat. I think at this point it's been, well over 30 years. So I don't miss it. Now I'll tell you what I do miss. I miss me some cheese because I love me some cheese. I love some goat cheese. I love uh Gouda. I mean, I did. I love Gouda, and I still haven't found the right. I've gotten close to some vegan cheeses, but man, I did love cheese. That's the one
Mm.
thing I'll say I miss more than
That
anything.
you miss, yeah. Well, I promise not to have you over because I love smoked Gouda and brie with
Oh,
with some smoked salmon on
That's
crackers.
okay. I have my vegan version. Look.
Oh, okay, okay, all right. We'll have to trade that for sure. All
Yeah.
right. So let's talk about carbs for a minute, Tamika. How do
Okay.
carbs factor into a vegan diet?
Well, there are quite a few carbs in a vegan diet. Now, this is how I look at it. And I know there's the whole phase with no carbs, but your body does need some carbs for the brain to function. Okay. But it's a good carb. The carbs that you should have are like, whole grain carbs. I mean, bean is a carb. It's a legume, but it's a carb, right? So if you have some, what is it called? What's that? The keto. So on keto, they don't eat beans, but it's a first of all, it's a great source of protein. It's a great source of fiber, right? So you're missing out on that fiber that your body needs in order to push stuff through properly. Okay. Um, so I am not an advocate of no carbs. Now, a loaf of bread, you may want to steer away from eating a whole loaf of bread. But I think that I believe you do need to have carbs in some form or fashion, just for with your brain, just for what it needs, because it puts up those sugars that are needed, right? That your
Yeah,
body needs. So if
yeah,
you're giving you what your body needs, it knows what to do with it, right?
right, right.
And it was created for a reason. Okay, so grains were grown for a reason.
Hmm.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Right, but
God put it on this planet for a reason. I don't
right.
I don't know. I don't know about y'all, but I think he put it on here for a reason.
No, and I mean that's real. And also, what you're talking about carbs, because one of the questions that also you and I kind of discussed was, dispelling the myth that people who are vegan or who are vegetarian, that they all are skinny. And you just said the word because of carbs. And if they're not watching the carb content that they're taking in, i.e., hint, hint, y'all want that sourdough bread and slathered with whatever you slather with. Somebody asked, what about condiments? Asking for what condiments do you suggest or that you use. But we have to be mindful of the amount of carbohydrates that you're taking in as well
Yes.
in this. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
And your carbs are for is energy for your body as well. You
right,
know.
right.
So I do believe you should be able to have what you want within moderation. Now,
Okay.
you mentioned about the myth of all skinny vegans. Well, when I first went whole food plant based, I released 32 pounds
Hmm. Hmm.
in, I don't know, about 8 months or so. But I was also working out, so I also exercise regularly.
Hmm.
Um, and in these last few months, I have gained weight because I have been Miss Heavy Carb Eater. I don't, and overeating.
Hmm.
So that's a big issue too. A lot of times we overeat, and what I just discovered about a week ago was that maybe you should get your hormones checked, because if you're not getting the signal that you're full,
Right.
that could be a hormonal issue.
That's right.
So
That's
yeah,
right.
so
Yeah. I'm glad that you said that. We're going to take a really quick break, but when we come back, let's get into talking about, um, do you date or marry a vegan? Depending on your answer, we're going to get into it a little bit more. But guys, I thank you so much for hanging in here. I appreciate your comments. I see all of them. Thank you guys so very much. We are here with plant-based vegan sister, Miss Tamiko Gardner, and she is shedding some light on some stuff that we all need to know. All right. So don't go anywhere, you guys. I'll be right back.
You told me not to talk to strangers. You told me not to cross the street without looking both ways.
You told me not to touch the stove.
You told me not to do drugs. You told me not to drink and drive.
You gave me so many messages about how to stay safe. Why didn't you keep me safe by properly storing your gun?
Have you ever seen somebody treated unfairly because of the color of their skin?
Do you guys know what it means to have white privilege?
What is racism and what do you think about it?
All right. If you guys are just tuning in, you've missed just a phenomenal part of the show. But I do want to remind you, you can go back and look at it. It airs on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. So check it out. We are, I don't know if I said this at the beginning of the show, we are also international, Miss Tamiko. So we have people all around the world that watches the show. So you guys have questions, comments, you know how to hit me up. Give me some feedback. Before we went to break, and I noticed that my guest, she just kind of smiled. I was like, I just got to ask this question. Do you date somebody or marry someone that says they're a vegan? How do you deal with that? And especially if the other party is not. So it's kind of like a little bit off the script, but let's talk about that because that's interesting.
So I have not been with anyone who is vegetarian or vegan. So I was married for about 13 years, 13, 14 years, and he was not vegetarian. He was not vegan. Well, I wasn't vegan at the time, I was vegetarian. But I cooked the same. I'm not that strict of a vegan that I'm not going to touch meat, that I don't want my stuff not touching it. I'm not that intense with it. Now I just make sure that I'm not partaking in the animal food. So, but there are some who are really strict about that, and their choice is their choice, and my choice is my choice. I'm currently, my boyfriend currently is not vegan, but he's open. He'll try some of the things. I've turned him on to a vegan restaurant, and he's like, "Oh, he goes on his own." I was like, "Oh, check you out. You going to it by yourself?" And then I've made some things. I've cooked it. So will cook two different things. So like for instance, one time I think he loves the way I make catfish in the air fryer. So I made him catfish, but then I made these other things like their banana blossoms, which is a great, and you can get those in a can. They come in a can usually in Asian stores. And it's light and it'll kind of flake up. And I fried it just like some fat catfish. And we had the same size. I made some mashed potatoes. The mashed potatoes were vegan, but you don't know. I should have put a little vegan butter in that bad boy. We went to town. I made vegan desserts, and he's enjoyed it. So it's if you're with someone who's open to at least trying it, and they're pretty open to it, yeah. So that's my take. You date who you date, and it'd be cool. It'd be interesting. I've never been with anybody that way.
Yeah. And I asked that, like I shared with you earlier. I know a couple that is married, and one is, strictly, strictly vegan, and the other is like, gotta have some meat, and they make it work. So basically, what I hear you saying is, there's give and take on either side, but it's also respect there too. So someone respects what your choices are, and not try to push it down your throat. Then I think that's a good thing. But let me go back real quickly to something that you said when you got into and you became a vegan or was a vegetarian, and you said you lost 32 pounds or something, right?
Yes.
I think it would be safe to say that what people also need to understand is that when your body adjusts, it brings you to where your real body size should be. And so, people say, oh, I lost 50 pounds when I did this. And then you get to a plateau and you've not. But that was the weight that you should have been at.
Yes.
And so you just have to be aware of that. And as Tamiko said, also with working out and all these other things, that does also, I think that that's important for us to be able to also notice. Yeah.
Right.
So
Because weight loss is contributed to 80% of what you eat and 20%
right.
of exercise, right? So, and portion size is huge. I say, portion size. And really being able to eat it with intention and paying and being conscious of what you're putting in, right? So I'm guilty. You're eating for you're sitting at your desk and or working, but you're not really paying attention to what you're doing. So you just kind of, or you're watching a movie and you're just mindlessly putting it in there. But if you
Right.
sat at the table and really pay attention to your food signals, because I've done Weight Watchers many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and your body actually gets full like about 20 minutes before you really realize it. And by the time you feel like you full, you like ready to bust out your pants, right?
Right. Right.
So it really and I lived it and I've done it. I was always on all kind of eating plans because my weight was always doing this. But
Mm-hmm.
when I was doing whole food plant based, let me tell you, I wasn't really counting calories. I was just mainly watching my
Yeah.
portion size,
Yeah.
but I was eating foods that my body could use. So
Yeah. We have a question
yeah,
from one of the viewers wants to know, do you cook vegan soul dishes?
I do. Yes, I do.
Okay.
I make my greens, and I used to do these events, and I'm going to start them back up again. They were called Vegan Curious events. And
Mm.
what I did was I made the vegan version and a non-vegan version of the same food,
Oh,
but
wow.
you wouldn't, but it was a taste test. So you didn't know, and you had to figure out which one was vegan, which one was not. So the very first one I held was in um, November of 2018,
Mm-hmm.
and it was around Thanksgiving. So I did sweet potato pie. I did dressing. No, that one I didn't do dressing. I did sweet potato pie. I did potato salad. Um, God, what was the other thing I did? But let me tell you, the sweet potato pie, they thought that vegan version was the real one.
Right. They say on that's on and cracking.
Dude came up at the end saying, so how much are you selling that pie for? I said, what? I'm not selling any pies. No, that vegan one. I think you got another vegan one left. I'll buy it from you. I was like, oh no, bro, you can't buy my vegan pie, man. I was like, we're not doing that. And I've made greens, and someone who was really big greens, I'd use just a tad. The trick is a tad bit of liquid smoke, and that helps to give you
Yes.
that smoky flavor.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
can't put too much; it'll mess it up. So I usually
Yeah.
just put a cap full. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, so you guys have it. All right. So, um, is it expensive to be a vegan? Because I'm listening to, because when I hear this, I'm thinking, I got to go to all these health food stores for everything. The prices are jacked even more. So, talk to us about, is it expensive or not? What suggestions do you have for us?
I say go to the grocery store and you're already buying vegetables, right? You're already buying some of your sides like brown rice. You're already buying beans. So start to think about the things that you already have that are already vegan, and start to add more of your sides, right? So those things are already, so you can buy in bulk, right? You can buy in bulk, like you can buy your beans in bulk. And I think you can now. It doesn't have to be expensive. Now, where the price probably will jump up a little bit is when you start going organic, which is ultimately the thing you want to do, right? If you can. But there are certain things that you don't have to buy organic. There's like the dirty dozen that they say. So, like for instance, bananas, you don't necessarily have to buy those vegan because the skin is so thick that the chemicals aren't coming into that skin as much. But of course, you can. But just if you're looking at your budget from that perspective, um, because you know what, meat is expensive. I've done meal prep for clients. I was doing meal prep for clients, and those who were doing meat, man, that bill was a lot higher. I would walk out with a basket full of stuff at Trader Joe's. Shop Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's got great prices, and they have organic and non-organic. Sprouts. I don't know if there's where everybody's located, but Sprouts is another store. But you can still go to your typical grocery store and buy your fruits and vegetables. You don't have to buy all these special things. Now, if you want nutritional yeast, you can get that at Trader Joe's. It's like $2.99 for it, and you're only going to use a little bit, so it'll last you for a while. Um, Liquid smoke. There are some condiments I think that you can buy, right? But you don't have to. You don't have to buy all that fancy stuff to start out. I'd say start with what you have. Start with what
Mhm.
you already have.
Yeah. And also, when it comes to bulk, one of the things that I know that I used to do, I had girlfriends that if I were going to go to Costco and I was going to buy whether it was flour or rice or whatever, say, look, I'm making a run. Do you guys need jasmine rice? Do you need this? And what we would do is we would split it up into threes, and the cost was much less. Of course, and you know, I'm from the country, so look, we had cans, so we could buy flour meal. Look, I'm not ashamed because that was survival, and people need to kind of go back to to a lot of that if you really and truly think about it. So that might be something else. But as our time winds down, I really want to get to this. Tamika, are there any inherent dangers with a vegan diet? And what I'm leading up to or thinking about is, low hemoglobin. We've already kind of talked about too many carbs and how you get that. But what about also low energy level? Because we know that carbs are supposed to give us energy, but what are some things that people need to um, to watch out for if they're going vegan?
Well, I will say this with regards to your energy level. Your energy level is probably going to boost as you begin to eat less processed food because your body uses more energy to break down the meat, right? It takes up more energy for that than it does to break down a vegetable that is mainly water. So your body, so actually, as you begin to move more in that direction, I know for me, if I'm eating really well, I don't walk away from the table like, oh my God, I can't breathe. So, but there, if you have low energy, I would say get yourself some beets. That's a great energy boost. I swear to goodness, it's like a
Yes,
shot in the arm, right? And it does double duty because it's also good for your iron, right?
yeah, that
So
is
you
very
could just
true. Yeah.
right, spinach. So like hemoglobin, like I've always been slightly anemic,
Mm-hmm.
and for the first time, like about last year, sometime I think I had some blood drawn, and I said, "Oh, so am I still slightly anemic?" And she said, "No, you're fine." I said, "Get out." That's the first time, and I can't tell you since I was a teenager that I was not. And I attribute that to I eat a lot of beets. I eat a lot of kale, spinach. These are all things. But you do have to make sure that you do that combining for that iron, right? So you need to get
Right,
in the vitamin C in order for it to be the full thing, right?
right.
Broccoli. Broccoli is a great source of vitamin C.
Hmm. Absolutely. So we had someone join the show, and she does bring up this true.
Yes.
Farmers market is a great
Yes.
for price option. I love the farmers
Oh
market.
my
I
God.
mean, they're
Yes.
huge.
Yes.
Look,
Yes.
and I by myself now. I found three to hit.
I have a blast at the farmers market, and they are. And the cool thing about farmers markets is that you're supporting local farmers.
Right, right.
So,
So that's the thing. So thank you, Elaine, for saying that. So as we wind down in less than 60 seconds,
woo,
Miss Tamika, I know I told you the time goes by.
it goes by so fast.
What do you want people watching the show to take away from today?
I want you to take away that it is your journey. Look at if you decided to go, plant-based, vegan, it's your journey. And on a journey, there are twists, there are turns, there's left turns, and enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy it, right? Have fun, right? And not get so tied up into, oh my God, I got to do this. Have a good time with it, right? The more fun and have an open mind. Be open and experiment. And that's where you're going to find where your little niche is or your little thing, right? Just so you just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
Enjoy the journey.
Oh my goodness. Guys, these are the kind of interviews that you always hate to have to end. Tamika, I, I'm going to ask that you don't go anywhere. You stay right there and I'll come back to you, okay? All right. To all of you who have been tuned in, all your comments and your feedback, I so appreciate all of you. You guys should know that. Appreciate your support. I appreciate you being here. And I hope that there has been something that has been said today that you can take away that it really was informational, it was inspirational, and it was educational to all of you. Remember, be sure and tune in, set your clocks every Tuesday, 5 to 6 p.m. for the You Didn't Get the Memo show. Also, I want to encourage you to be sure and follow me on all my social media platforms. Um, I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, you name it, I'm there. Just be there. I appreciate all of you for your support. And again, you know, hey, it's been a blast. Always is. And as I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's really you who didn't get the memo. After all, I'm going to leave you with this. The quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. I want you to go out until this time next week. Allow perseverance to walk you into your purpose. Have a wonderful week. Give thanks for all of your many, 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 many blessings. Stay safe and always remember to pay it forward. It's a blessing in giving. I'm Gloria Bailey Ray, your host. Peace and blessings to all of you. Be well.